In Cuba, being a torcedor puts you in a highly respected profession. It takes years to become proficient and very few people become master rollers. Cigar rollers like Jose Castella have been in the profession for 61 years, which is an incredible amount of time and dedication. As he explains in the video, a lot of work goes into each individually hand-rolled Cuban cigar. The filler itself contains multiple types of leaves, both to help with the flavor and the burn of the cigar. This is then wrapped in a binder leaf, which helps to contain everything and retain the shape. After which a final leaf is used to wrap the whole cigar. This is the wrapper leaf, which is used to beautify the cigar. All in all, the time, dedication and effort that goes into each individual cigar is simply incredible. This goes to explain why Cuban cigars, when compared to general tobacco products, are so expensive. When you compare Cuban cigars to general tobacco products, then of course the cigars will almost always be the more expensive option. This isn't a huge revelation and it's pretty obvious to most. The quality of the product and time taken to produce dictates the price. For this reason, in order to determine whether Cuban cigars are expensive, they must be compared to other equivalent products. Cigars from other countries like Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic have become extremely popular over the last decade, and these cigars are what we can compare Cuban cigars to. Cigars that are not produced in Cuba are generally referred to as New World cigars. Mitchell Orchant, from Cigars Limited, explains a few points and differences between Cuban and New World cigars. One of the points that Orchant makes is that New World cigars tend to have better quality control, which I also agree with. Cigars from companies like Davidoff can have boxes after boxes with perfectly rolled cigars. With Cubans, however, each box can have a couple of cigars with some issue to them. What's really interesting is the fact that when you compare Cuban cigars to New World cigars on the basis of price, New World cigars are generally more expensive. This if you compare equivalent premium options. Of course, there are certain brands and vitolas that can be offered as examples from either side. However, when you compare both sides, on an average, New World cigars are more expensive. Consider the fact that the most expensive cigars in the world are not Cuban. This even when you take into consideration highly sought after limited editions and Cohiba Baha'i type cigars. The most expensive cigars in the world are New World cigars. Although, this also tends to depend on individual countries and markets. Now, I should mention the fact that the video does not aim to compare both types of cigars. They do not claim Cuban cigars are the most expensive, so this is not a point against the video itself. This is more to do with the fact that when you compare Cuban cigars to equivalent options, one could consider them to be good value for money. The idea of something being expensive is completely subjective. Realistically, there's no such thing as expensive or cheap, instead, there is only value. If something is perceived as good value for money, then it can't be described as being expensive. For that reason, it comes down to you as to whether you think Cuban cigars are expensive or not. Nonetheless, the video linked above goes into a decent amount of detail, covering some of the major points. It's a great overview for people interested in the subject. Cuban cigars hold a reputation as the world's most opulent tobacco product. A box of good quality habanos can cost thousands of dollars. Every hand-rolled Cuban cigar goes through about 500 manual tasks from seed to cigar. But over the last 25 years, cigars made in other countries in the Caribbean and Central America have become comparable in quality, consistency, and cost. Worse still for American smokers, your Cuban cigar could be fake. Some experts suggest that up to 95% of all Cuban cigars in the US are actually counterfeit. So why are Cuban cigars so desirable? And is that why they're so expensive? For more than 200 years, the culture of cigar making in Cuba hasn't changed. In a process that takes about a year, tobacco leaves are grown, harvested, and hung in drying houses called secaderos before a slow fermentation occurs, which enhances flavor, aroma, and burning characteristics. Each leaf is inspected for its type, appearance, and quality and handed to a torcedor, a highly skilled cigar roller, greatly respected in Cuban society. In addition to quality, there are a few fundamental factors that determine the price of all cigars. Firstly, the size, measured in both length and diameter. Generally speaking, the larger the cigar, the more expensive it is. Secondly, the vitola, differently shaped cigars which take extra time and consideration when rolling. Thirdly, the age. The longer a cigar has aged, intensifying the depth of flavor and aroma, the more precious it becomes. But lastly, and most importantly, is the branding. Habanos is the corporation, part owned by the Cuban government, that controls the worldwide commercialization of all Habanos cigar brands. All Habanos cigars are made in Cuba, but not every Cuban cigar qualifies as a Habano. The state-owned company issues protected denomination of origin approval for a selection of brands whose cigars it claims are manufactured to the most stringent quality control standards. To protect against counterfeiting, Habanos only exports to selected companies in each country. The only nation it does not sell to is the United States, which hasn't allowed the import of Cuban cigars since the 1962 embargo action by President John F. Kennedy, who just hours before signing the decree banning all Cuban products from the United States ordered his press secretary to buy over 1,000 Cuban cigars. Not only did this ban increase the desire for authentic Cuban cigars for American smokers, but it also created a booming black market for smuggled and counterfeit cigars. As with any consumable, taste and enjoyment are subjective. Considering its depiction as a status symbol in society for over a century, it's reasonable to say that the allure of Cuban cigars is somewhat based on prestige. And although high prices are fetched for some Habanos, particularly where outlawed in the United States, in recent years all variety of premium cigar have become uniformly priced. Nonetheless, despite an increasing appetite for cigars from other countries, some connoisseurs will insist that the most authentic smoke comes only from Cuban cigars.